The only problem about television is that it doesn't care whether you're retiring or not. The show goes on regardless. Our first feature story today is a new one, the last one I'll produce for Farmweek. Keeping plants and gardens watered properly is one of the more tiring aspects of gardening. This story is about a method of watering plants consistently, and it does it from the bottom up. They're called sub-irrigated containers. They don't do away with watering, but they can make the chore easier to handle while producing some outstanding vegetables and flowers.
Artist, this year is my first year of total earth box gardening system. I've done away with the raised beds, and I am off to the best start ever, and I've vegetable gardened all my life.
John Monroe of Purvis, Mississippi loves to share produce from his garden with the older residents of his community. None of it, however, actually grows in the ground. Monroe has 114 sub-irrigated containers. He grows vegetables including tomatoes, sweet corn, squash, okra, and butter beans. Monroe uses the Earthbox brand of sub-irrigated containers.
You have such good watering system there, and the fertility is there. It has massive stalks on the plant all the way to the top.
Research associate Scott Langlois works at Poplarville with the South Mississippi Branch Experiment Station of Mississippi State University. The station has used sub-irrigated containers as part of its display garden for 3 years.
The common design theme across all of them is this innovative false bottom. Keeps the media up away from the water reservoir. These water reservoirs can hold 2 to 3 gallons of water. The media is in partial contact with the water, so there's a wicking action, which is why we call them sub-irrigated containers.
The Earthbox brand comes with a plastic cover to slow evaporation and weed growth. Langlois notes there are several manufacturers, but he's found they perform equally.
We found that they pretty much work the same once they're planted. The different designs, what really makes them different, I think, is the design of the false bottom and how you add water. Some, such as the Earthbox, are simply just easier to keep filled with water because it has this fill tube coming out of the top of the box.
You can't overwater a sub-irrigated container because the reservoir has an overflow opening. Extension horticulturist Dr. Gary Bachman with Mississippi State University says this reservoir supports the greatest myth about sub-irrigated containers. Many gardeners think you water just once a week or less.
The thing is with the sub-irrigated containers, it's just like growing in the ground, management-wise. You still have to water at the same frequency that you normally would if your garden was in the ground.
Bachman says 2 mature tomato plants with fruit can empty a container's reservoir in 1 day.
They'll have a 2 to 3 gallon reservoir. Theoretically, 2 plants can drain all the water out of that reservoir, and that has to be replaced before the next day.
Streamlining his garden watering is the reason Monroe says he made the switch from raised beds to sub-irrigated containers. He set up a drip irrigation system with timers to keep the bottom reservoirs filled.
I'm out here every morning checking things, checking emitters, drippers, lines, whatever, and making sure that the water is adequate. And the earth boxes themselves will tell you when they're full because they have an overflow hole on them. So you can really streamline the water management here.
Monroe placed his sub-irrigated containers on stands so harvesting and replanting takes place at a comfortable level. That's an advantage for gardeners with health problems.
Where the boxes are up on tables or on benches. And so what you're doing is you're bringing that garden up higher. So if you got a bad back, bad knees, you know, if you need a scooter to get around the garden, all of a sudden the garden's not down there, it's waist high. Much easier to garden, harvest, and enjoy what you're doing.
The soil in a sub-irrigated container isn't soil at all. A quality peat moss-based potting mix is used for proper drainage. A granular agricultural-grade fertilizer such as 10-10-10 is added according to the manufacturer's directions.
I recommend that the gardener uses a container mix, one that's primarily peat moss, because if you use regular soil, yeah, it will draw the water up, but what'll happen is it'll turn into mud.
The potting mix, however, does not provide superior root support, so plants like corn or tomatoes have to be supported. Monroe uses a variety of trellises which are built into the container stands.
I build substantial trellises, and I have not had any problem with them because of that. You must tie up things like corn, okra, which you might not expect to do, but it's growing in a very loose mix of potting mix, and things can simply fall over.
Soil-borne diseases are not a concern with potting mixes, so you can succession plant and use the same mix the next year. You don't, however, get a break with insect control.
Whatever crop you're growing, you're still going to have those pests, so you're going to have to address that issue.
You can find plans on the internet to build your own sub-irrigated containers. What about the cost of manufactured ones?
The ones that we've trialed here at the station, for the consumer, you're looking at paying between $25 and $50 generally. Now, there are many options that can be purchased with these containers. Virtually every manufacturer offers a stand kit, wheels that can be added to the bottom. If you're rolling it around on the patio, that's convenient.
This is a upfront cost, and then it's a long-term investment is what I have found, because I've got some earth boxes that have been in use for 15 years. So they handle sunlight very well. I've tried to build something like this myself, homemade job, and it was very successful for a year or two, and then the plastic disintegrates in the sun.
It's recommended gardeners start small with sub-irrigated containers like Jerry Good of the Pine Belt Master Gardeners did.
I have a very small yard, and as my trees have grown in my yard, not much sun. So I bought one and put 2 tomato plants in it, and very satisfied with it.
There's a type of system that will help any gardener that's interested be successful. And that's the key to the whole thing. It's going to help people be successful.
You can watch this story again on sub-irrigated containers. You can find it on our Farmweek website, Facebook page, YouTube, or Twitter. The website is addressed as farmweek.msucares.com. Leighton, a couple of other notes from John Monroe. He planted his corn March 1st and started to harvest 81 days later. Now he's down south in Purvis, so he can start a little earlier.
Right.
He picked his butter beans the other day, 1.5 bushels off of 9 containers. And that's the first picking. There will be more butter beans
I'm sure
to
his
come.
neighbors and friends are happy to hear about that.
I'm sure. You know, it's not a silver bullet. You got to buy the container. You got to build the trellises. But if you have just a patio you kind of want to garden on, if you've got somebody with mobility problems that would like to garden, I mean, it's well made for that. Gary Bachman, I think he has 134 boxes, so
Man.
he is sold on them.
Great story, Artist. Thanks.